The phone rang exactly at 2:13 a.m. Claire hadn't slept in 3 nights. Ever since her daughter Emily vanished walking home from her night shift at the hospital, her world had turned unbearably quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the hallway clock, and that one ringtone she hadn't changed in years. She reached for the phone instinctively, heart pounding. Emily flashed on the screen. The same number, the same contact photo. Emily beaming in a summer dress with sun-kissed cheeks, holding a sparkler on her 21st birthday. Claire's hands shook. She answered, "Emily!" Her voice broke, but it wasn't Emily. There was a pause, a long, heavy silence. Then came a man's voice, low, scratchy, unfamiliar. "She shouldn't have come here." Claire froze. "Who is this? Where's my daughter? What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Just 5 chilling words, spoken slowly, with a finality that made her blood run cold. "Don't look for her again." Click. The line went dead. Claire sat there, her hand still gripping the phone, her brain trying to catch up. That voice, the calmness, the threat. Her daughter was in trouble. She was still alive, and someone else had her phone. She glanced at the call log. Incoming call, 2:13 a.m., 37 seconds. Emily. She nearly hit redial but stopped. From the hallway, the motion sensor light blinked on. The front door was locked. The chain was still latched. But Claire could hear it. A soft breath, steady and deliberate, just inches from the other side of the door. What comes next will change everything. To uncover the truth hidden in the shadows, stay with us. Subscribe to Missing Shadows, where every story whispers a secret. Claire Monroe had never been the kind of woman to believe in bad omens, until now. At 45, she looked like someone who had once known how to laugh, but had forgotten the shape of it. The creases on her face weren't from age, but from nights spent staring at ceilings and unanswered messages. Her once blonde hair was streaked with exhaustion, her eyes an ocean gray that had turned dull from grief. Claire was a nurse by trade. 12-hour shifts, neon lights, and the smell of antiseptic. She used to be quick, sharp, tireless. Now she moved like she was dragging 100 pounds of invisible sorrow with her, every step weighed down by the question, where is Emily? Emily, her only child, bright, sarcastic, stubborn, vanished without a trace 2 weeks ago after texting, "On my way home, love you." That was the last message. Since then, Claire had been suspended from work for not showing up. She didn't care. She couldn't remember the last time she ate something solid or slept longer than an hour. Her home, once spotless, was now a maze of missing posters, cold coffee cups, and news clippings. People had started to pull away. Friends with sympathetic eyes but tired voices. Officers who had stopped calling daily. A brother who told her to let the police handle it. But Claire wasn't wired like that. She couldn't, wouldn't. She'd already been through loss once, losing her husband to a drunk driver when Emily was 8. She had rebuilt herself for Emily. Everything she'd become had been for that girl. Now without Emily, she felt like a hollow structure, still standing, but one storm away from collapse. And last night's phone call had changed everything. Claire didn't know what she was stepping into. She only knew one thing. She was going to find her daughter. Alive or dead, she had to know. Claire never used to be afraid of ringing phones. She never used to check the locks 3 times before bed, or wake up gasping from dreams she couldn't remember, drenched in cold sweat. She used to believe that bad things happened to other people. Strangers on the news, names in the obituaries, stories whispered at hospital desks. But that was before everything broke, before that night shattered her family. It was a Tuesday, rain-soaked streets, a usual dinner. Emily, only 8, was at the table practicing cursive on the back of a coloring book. And Michael, Claire's husband, her college sweetheart, the calm in her storm, had kissed her on the forehead before leaving to pick up groceries. He never came back. A drunk driver speeding down the opposite lane had jumped the median. There had been no time to brake, no time to swerve, no time to say goodbye. Claire had dropped the phone when the police told her. Emily had watched her mother fall to her knees on the kitchen floor, fists clenched in her apron, the pot on the stove bubbling over unnoticed. That night, something inside Claire froze. She didn't cry at the funeral, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. She had to be the strong one, for Emily, for both of them. But the grief dug deep and quietly. For years, Claire functioned like a machine. Shift, sleep, pack lunches, show up for parent-teacher meetings, smile when she had to. But behind that smile lived a silent, haunting thought. What if love always leaves? Emily became her anchor, her reason to keep breathing, to keep believing the world could still hold beauty. Watching her daughter grow into a brilliant young woman made Claire feel like maybe the universe was offering her a second chance. And now, Emily was gone too. The phone call last night had ripped open an old wound that had never truly healed. It brought everything back. The sirens, the silence, the feeling of powerlessness. Claire didn't just fear losing Emily. She feared being left behind again, abandoned by fate, mocked by hope. And this time she wouldn't let the silence win. This time she would fight for the ending she didn't get the first time, even if it meant losing herself in the process. The next morning, Claire couldn't bring herself to leave the house. She sat at the kitchen table, unmoving, her coffee long gone cold, Emily's untouched cereal box still sitting by the sink. The call from the night before echoed in her head like a ticking bomb. Don't look for her again. Those 5 words had rooted themselves deep in her mind, thorns under her skin. She should have gone to the police. But what would she even say? That a strange man answered her missing daughter's phone and whispered threats through the line? That she heard breathing outside her door? There was no proof, no recording, just a mother's desperation, which the detectives had already begun to file under emotional instability. Claire's eyes drifted to Emily's belongings stacked in the hallway, her spare laptop, her sketchbooks, a pair of sneakers too worn to donate. On impulse, Claire opened the laptop and hit the power button. The screen flickered to life, password protected. She typed in Emily123, nothing. Monroe 2023, number her birthday, number. She stared at the blinking cursor, then typed one word, Dad. The screen unlocked. Claire's throat tightened. The desktop background was a photo Claire hadn't seen in years. The 3 of them, laughing in a sunflower field. Emily on Michael's shoulders, both of them beaming. She opened the browser. The last search made her stomach flip. Abandoned railway tunnels, Green Ridge. Sealed entrances map. Claire's pulse quickened. There were several files saved to the desktop. Images of old maps, screenshots of forums discussing forgotten transit systems, blurry photos of a tunnel entrance overgrown with weeds. One folder was labeled, For Mom, open only if something happens. Claire clicked. Inside was a single video. She hit play. The screen lit up with Emily's face. She looked tired, pale, scared. Hey, Mom, her voice trembled. If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it back, and I need you to listen carefully. Claire leaned in, hands trembling. I was investigating something I wasn't supposed to find. There's something under Greenridge Station. I don't know what it is yet, but it's old, hidden, and it's watching people. I thought I could figure it out, but I think someone's on to me now. A pause. Emily glances off screen, nervous. If I disappear, don't tell the police. Don't trust anyone. Go to the tunnel entrance near the old train depot. Take this video, And Mom, her eyes soften, glassy with tears. Please be careful. Whatever this is, it's not just human. The video cut out. Claire stared at the screen, heart pounding, breath short. That was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. This was a warning, a trail, a message from her daughter. And Claire knew with chilling certainty, the only way forward was into the dark. Claire stood at the edge of the overgrown railway line, just behind the old Greenridge train depot. The air was damp, heavy with moss and metal. The place had been decommissioned for nearly 2 decades. No one came here anymore. Even birds seemed to avoid the rusted tracks that twisted into the trees like skeletal remains. She clutched Emily's video in one hand, a flashlight in the other, and a kitchen knife tucked deep into her coat pocket, just in case. The tunnel entrance was exactly where Emily had said it would be, half buried beneath a curtain of vines and graffiti-stained concrete. A rusted sign above it read, T13, do not enter. Claire hesitated. Her daughter had warned her. Something was down here. Something not quite human. She stepped forward anyway. The flashlight flickered as she entered. Damp air pressed in around her like a second skin. The walls were covered in grime and old posters, the floor scattered with broken tiles and glass. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped steadily, echoing like a heartbeat. Then came the voice. You shouldn't be here. Claire spun around, nearly dropping the flashlight. A man stood behind her, partially obscured by the shadows. Mid-30s, tall, scruffy beard, and a weather-beaten backpack slung over one shoulder. Who are you? Claire asked, breath-catching. Name's Ian, he said cautiously. You're Emily's mom, aren't you? Her stomach turned to ice. How do you know my daughter? I've been trying to find her too, he replied. We were in the same underground forum. She reached out to me a few weeks before she disappeared. Said she'd found something no one else had. Something buried. Something alive. Claire took a shaky step forward. Do you know where she is? Ian shook his head. Number. But I think I know who took her. He pulled a crumpled photo from his coat pocket, a grainy surveillance shot of a man in a suit near the station. Face half turned, eyes cold and unnatural. Claire stared at the image. Who is that? They call him the conductor. He doesn't run trains. He collects passengers, people who go down into the tunnels and never come out. Claire felt like her lungs had collapsed. That's ridiculous. Is it? Ian interrupted. Because in the last 10 years, over a dozen people have vanished within a mile of this depot. No bodies, no signs, just gone. And your daughter was the only one digging deep enough to get his attention. Claire wanted to run, wanted to scream, but something held her there. Emily's face in that video, the fear in her voice, the urgency. Then where do we start? She asked. Ian glanced down the tunnel. There's a hidden access door. Emily said it was sealed for a reason. If we're going in, we need to be ready. Claire nodded, gripping her flashlight tighter. But even as she stepped deeper into the tunnel beside a stranger, she could feel it. Eyes watching from somewhere beyond the beam of light. The walls around her hummed with something electric, something ancient, the same warmth she felt on the bench the night before. She felt it again here. Every instinct screamed to turn back. But mothers don't listen to fear, not when their children are still calling for help in the dark. The hidden access door was colder than anything Claire had ever touched. Metal, but oddly smooth, like stone worn down by centuries of wind. Ian worked at the lock with a rusted crowbar and whispered, Emily said this was where she saw him disappear. The lock gave way with a groan. The door swung open to reveal a narrow stairwell, leading downward into a tight, choking darkness. As they descended, the flashlight's beam danced across strange markings on the wall. Symbols, not words, etched deep into the stone. Claire's mind raced. Was this some kind of cult? A forgotten utility tunnel? A game gone too far? They reached the bottom. The room was cavernous, silent, and bone dry. A circular space with concrete walls, flickering bulbs overhead, and dozens of phones mounted across the far wall like a grim museum display. Different models, some old, some new, each with a name tag beneath it, and one of them read, Emily Monroe. Claire's legs nearly gave out. She ran to the phone, her fingers trembling as she lifted it from the cradle. The screen lit up. Last incoming call, 2:13 a.m., answered. This was real. It wasn't a dream or paranoia or delusion. She had spoken to someone, or something, who had access to her daughter's phone. Ian stood behind her, quiet, unreadable. Claire turned to him. What is this place? He didn't answer right away. Then too calmly he said, It's where the conductor keeps the ones he wants to remember. Claire frowned. What? Ian took a slow step forward. He doesn't kill them. Not really. He stores them. Their voices, their images, their memories. He makes them stay. Claire felt her breath catch. What are you talking about? How do you even know all this? Ian raised his eyes and something shifted in them. Something wrong. They flickered, just for a second, as if light itself distorted inside them. Claire stepped back. Ian, he smiled faintly. You're brave, Claire. You made it this far. Most don't. But Emily, his voice softened. She was extraordinary. She found something even I didn't want her to. Claire's world tilted. You're not Ian. No, he said gently. Ian disappeared 3 years ago. Just like Emily. Just like the others. I kept his face. It made this part easier. Claire's scream echoed off the walls as she lunged toward the door, but it slammed shut before she reached it. Her flashlight blinked, then died. The chamber flooded with a strange glow. All the phones began to ring at once, and then, one by one, they answered themselves. Dozens of voices spoke in unison, some crying, some whispering, some screaming, but all of them repeating one name over and over. Claire, Claire, Claire. And one voice, clear, afraid, and familiar, rose above the rest. Mom, don't let him keep you too. Claire dropped to her knees, shaking. The world she thought she knew, the people she trusted, the systems she relied on, had collapsed into something monstrous, supernatural, and deeply personal. She had come looking for her daughter, but now she realized something far more terrifying. Emily hadn't disappeared. She'd been imprisoned, in a memory that wouldn't let go. And now Claire was trapped too. The voices were everywhere. They poured out of the ringing phones like a tidal wave. Echoes of souls trapped in loops, begging to be heard, to be remembered. Claire covered her ears, but it made no difference. The noise was inside her head now. Names, screams, Emily's voice whispering through the chaos. Mom, I'm still here, but he's trying to make me forget you. Claire staggered to her feet, heart pounding, throat dry. I'm not leaving without you, she cried out. The conductor, still wearing Ian's face, stood motionless near the center of the room. His features were calm, like a parent watching a child have a tantrum. You could stay, Claire. Stay in this memory forever. You could see her again, hear her voice every day, be with her, always. A soft click echoed through the room. One of the phones lit up and began to play a perfect hologram. Emily, 12 years old, laughing as she blew out birthday candles. Another phone rang. Emily at her high school graduation, beaming in her cap and gown. Then another. Emily singing in the car beside Claire, wind in her hair, off-key and glorious. Moments Claire had forgotten. Moments she'd give anything to relive. You don't have to grieve, the conductor said, voice velvet smooth. You don't have to be alone anymore. Stay and never feel pain again. Claire's knees buckled. God, it was tempting. To stay, to give up the fight, to disappear into these perfect eternal memories and forget the ache of the real world. The loneliness, the cold mornings, the nights staring at her phone waiting for a message that would never come. But deep down, she knew. This wasn't love. This was a trap, a beautiful prison. Emily doesn't belong here, Claire whispered, rising. And neither do I. She grabbed the closest phone from the wall and smashed it against the floor. A burst of static. The hologram flickered and vanished. Another, then another. The conductor's face began to shift, losing coherence, warping between faces, struggling to hold form. "What are you doing?" he roared. Claire didn't stop. She tore phones from the walls one by one, her hands bleeding from sharp plastic and metal, teeth clenched as voices screamed and hissed. The chamber pulsed violently, lights blinking like a dying heart. And then, silence. Only one phone remained. Emily Monroe. It glowed faintly in the darkness. Claire approached it slowly, her breath shallow, hands trembling. She pressed the answer button. There was no hologram, only a voice, software scared. "Mom!" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I'm here, baby. I'm going to bring you home." "I don't know how." Claire closed her eyes. "Then I'll stay long enough to remember who you are, so you can remember who I am, and together, we'll find a way out." The tunnel was sealed now. Days after her escape, Claire stood alone at the old Greenridge depot, staring at the collapsed stairwell entrance. Authorities claimed it had caved in due to structural weakness, but she knew the truth. The phones, the memories, the conductor, all of it buried beneath concrete and silence. She had made it out, somehow. She remembered fire, a surge of warmth. Emily's voice screaming for her to run. Then the world went white, and when she woke, she was in the forest outside the station, clutching the last surviving phone in her arms. Emily's phone. There was no SIM card, no contact list, just a single recording, time-stamped hours before her daughter vanished. "If you're seeing this, it means I fought him. It means I remembered you, Mom, that I didn't let him take everything. If there's any way out, I hope you find it. And if you do, live." Claire listened to that message every morning now, not because she needed proof, but because it reminded her she had chosen truth over illusion, pain over numbness, love over fantasy. Emily was still missing, but Claire no longer felt powerless. She started working again, just 2 nights a week, enough to feel human. She joined a support group for families of the missing. She talked, she listened. She no longer sat in silence. And every now and then, late at night, when the wind blew in strange ways or a light flickered without cause, she'd feel a presence, not haunting, not threatening, just near. Claire knew her daughter was still out there, not just as a memory, not just as a voice, but as a will refusing to be forgotten. And Claire would keep living, not because she'd moved on, but because Emily hadn't let go. Sometimes Claire still wakes in the middle of the night, heart racing, reaching for a phone that no longer rings. But she doesn't cry. Instead, she steps outside, barefoot on the cold porch, looks up at the stars and whispers, "I remember you." Not because she needs to remind herself, but because she knows Emily is listening. Love, real love, doesn't fade with time or distance or even darkness. It waits, it fights, it remembers. And though Claire walks in a world full of unanswered questions, she carries one unshakable truth. Some bonds can't be erased, not by fear, not by silence, not even by the kind of monsters that live in tunnels and memories. If Emily ever finds her way back, Claire will be waiting, and if she doesn't, Claire will keep the light on anyway, just in case.